So namaste and welcome to this Ask Me Anything. Uh, this is volume 17. And just to very briefly explain, if you're new to the channel, how this works, if you have any questions or observations or challenges that you're struggling with that you'd like me to answer, you can leave a comment underneath this video. And at the beginning of every month, I take some time, go through these comments that have been sent in and do my best to address them all. So if you leave a comment under here, I'll get to it at the beginning of July. And today we're going to go through all the ones that have been sent in during May. So I'm here today with Karen. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Helen.
Thanks for volunteering for reading for me. I really appreciate it. So whenever you're ready, if you'd like to get started, we'll go for it.
Okay. So this first question is from Christine. Dear Helen, someone I know and deeply cared about has completely turned away from me, just ignores me. I don't understand why, except it is related to awakening. Can a heart be completely closed and possibly opened again? Thanks for your thoughts. Wishing you the best.
Okay, thank you. So what we're really calling closing our heart is really our egoic, a separate sense of self, the defense of that separate sense of self. We all have barriers. And of course, we're not talking about our physical heart organ, we're talking about our spiritual heart, our heart center, our heart chakra, whichever you want to call it. And at certain times, we might feel more of a need to guard ourselves and to close those barriers than other times. And especially when we feel that we're a separate being, because as a separate being, we are kind of experiencing what we think is true about ourselves and the world constantly. So if we think that we're not good enough, we're going to be experiencing that as a reflection in our relationships. So if somebody says something unkind to us or about us, that is a reflection of how we're being unkind to our own self. But as a separate being, we won't realize that. We'll feel that this person out there is really attacking me, and we might not even be able to hear what they're actually saying. And as surprising as that is, if we remember that we're listening through our filters of our beliefs, the idea that we're not safe, that we're a separate being, then we're going to, it's going to be easier to understand why people might close their heart. Closing our heart really is just, we feel that we can somehow put some distance between me and another being. If I defend myself, if I pretend that I don't need anything from anyone. And of course, this isn't going on a conscious level most of the time. It's going on a deeper level for most of us. But we've had experiences of being hurt before, so we feel justified in keeping these barriers up. And then we meet someone that we might really want to form a deep and rich friendship or intimacy or romantic relationship or co-workers, and we want to get closer to that being. We're going to have to put these barriers down. But to do that, we've got to risk opening up again. So for most beings, especially those that think they're a separate being, that is really quite hard to do. And maybe some people go through their whole existence, their physical existence, never once really feeling what it's like to be unguarded and undefended in the heart center. And of course, we're learning to do that in awakening. As we feel more fulfilled inside ourselves from our recognition of who we really are, then less and less do we need anything from anyone anyway. It doesn't mean we don't want to be with them. It means we can just be with them. We're not asking them to give us respect or approval or love or safety or any of those things. So we're feeling that inside anyway, more and more. And in that dropping of our own defenses, everyone else can somehow subtly sense, because we're all one, that we're not asking anything of them. And it's not a verbal thing. It's just I'm letting you be whoever you are in this moment. So as we can do that with someone even who has closed their heart temporarily, then they begin to feel safer in that, to open that heart again. If you don't need anything from them, you can't be disappointed in them, and they'll sense that somehow. You're meeting them authentically, and you don't need to give anything to them either in that moment. You're already giving your unconditional love there, so those barriers are going to come down. But usually it might have to be you that does that first, because only in response to someone being unguarded will the ego usually let go in a separate being, someone who thinks they're separate. So you might have to go first, but it can happen and has to happen as a reflection of your own unguardedness that this other person will let go too. So it's a little, it hurts. I remember that feeling of feeling rejected or closed, someone's closed off from you. But it also helps to remember that they're really closing off from what they think you are or who they think you are. And that's why an awakened being really can never close their heart anymore, nor would want to, because they're not functioning from the level of thought. They're not functioning from the level of if I know who you really are, then I don't have to think about you and have those and try to protect those projections I have about you. You're free to surprise me in any moment, and I don't have anything to defend then inside. So as you experience who this being really is, but at the same time, understand why they might feel they need to protect themselves. They're constantly experiencing what they think is true and what they think is true about you, that you might hurt them. So understanding is compassion, isn't it? Same as love. And then their barriers will fall away over time. So hope that helps. And it's painful. But as you come to understand why they've done that, why they're doing that, they probably can't really hear what you're saying fully anyway. That they might not be able to until they've let go of their own defense mechanisms, at least temporarily, at least while they're with you. And then you've got a chance of real honesty and intimacy there, and connection. Thanks, Karen. You're still muted there, Karen.
This next
It's going to be
question
one of
is
those days, isn't it?
yes. This next question is from Jacqueline. Hello, Helen. Thank you for every satsang given to us with so much love. I've avoided asking a question, not that I don't have many, but it's a mixture of shame and indignity. I would like to ask for your help. I have been doing the practices. I watch your videos daily, and I can clearly see the deepening and the fruits of my satsang. But there is something obscure that hurts me a lot, which is the difficulty of making a decision. Faced with some situations, the mind attacks me and leaves me paralyzed between one option and another. This anguishes me a lot, takes away my peace. I would like you to clarify for me. Can doubt be a warning not to go ahead? That is something beneficial, or is it really the mind bringing confusion to paralyze us and increase the feeling of being separated? My feeling of loss, of letting many opportunities go by, not in my professional and family life, but mainly in terms of travel and leisure. It is as if all possibilities for rest and joy were aborted, reinforcing a feeling of unworthiness. Thank you for your help. Much love.
So it's a really good question you've sent, and I remember being in a similar sort of sticky place myself, where it seemed like it seemed like that for me the doubt was paralyzing, as you said, and one of the most fundamental shifts in my whole awakening was when I really learned what the best use of doubt was, because when it came, it felt paralyzing, as we said. It felt deeply unpleasant, and it seemed to eat away at my self-esteem. until I realized actually there might not be, and you've kind of hinted at this, doubt maybe not something that we might have misperceived it basically. So what if the doubt is our mind asking for help with a belief that is in the way of the right decision emerging and therefore getting what we want from that situation? So let's say we want to find a new job as an example, and the doubt, we want to apply, if we're seeing a job, we want to apply for it, and we feel um, doubt as to whether we should do that. We can't seem to come to a clear understanding. What should I do? So, firstly, that decision is happening spontaneously. The right decision will arise. You will just know at a certain point what to do. What clouds that? Well, you'll know what to do, or you'll find your body actually filling out the application. You know, it's already happening. So, what clouds that really then is the beliefs that we still have as a kind of a um, residue of believing we've been a separate being. So if we don't feel good enough inherently inside, if we feel there's something flawed or inadequate about us, then we're going to struggle really with allowing a clear decision to emerge. So we could look at the doubt as a sign that there is something that needs to be questioned, looked at first. And maybe we can turn doubt from, instead of being something that's trying to sabotage us, into here's our mind saying, okay, I need you to ask, to contemplate on this belief before I can uh, allow a clear decision to emerge. So please, I don't feel good enough, says mind. Would you question if that's actually true, so that we can let that evaporate, and then it'll be obvious what to do, the right thing. Not an up here mental knowing, but something that's just obviously this is the path forward. This is the best path forward. It won't be coming from a place of what should I do, a mental thing. It'll be a deep intuitive knowing with a certainty. So if we look at doubt as a mixture of resistance and guidance at the same time, and that the more we resist it, the worse it's going to feel. So if you can make friends with our mind and say, maybe mind is trying to help us. It can't contemplate, it can only give us thoughts. And it's now saying, please question this for me, and see if it's true, then we can move forward. So looking at what your mind's telling you here, it's showing you this belief, like I was saying, came up for me over and over again. And I had to sort of apply it in different areas. So in this case, you're about to go for this job interview and you get this stab of feeling, I don't feel good enough. Why am I even applying for this? What's the point in doing the interview? Really, that's mind saying, can you please help me? We still have this idea of unworthiness here. It needs to be questioned a little deeper. And then we can walk into this interview feeling not arrogant or overly self-confident, just assured him the decision that whatever the outcome of this is, this interview, it's what's best for me. It's not an outcome of the fact that I'm not good enough. So looking at the doubt, doing your best to welcome it, even though it won't feel so good at first. But it doesn't feel good because we're pushing it away. It's actually got some wisdom in there. And doubt was perhaps some of the best guidance I've ever received, but in disguise, in a real disguise, looking like the opposite package. A gift that we perhaps want to return to sender. But if we can open it up and look at it, what's this trying to tell me? It's actually quite a valuable spiritual tool. And there's nothing wrong with doubting. It's just helping us come to move forward from a place of certainty and clarity. We've all seen what happens when we move forward by trying to figure out what we should do through the mind. And maybe that's the only tool we had at the time, but now we can use this deep intuitive capacity that we're really getting back in touch with. And doubt has always been for me a mixture of some belief that needs to be questioned, a little resistance in that way, and a little guidance too. And the guidance becomes very clear once you've like on one side it's resistance, the other side is guidance. So you come at it looking at the resistance, you work through that belief, Is that really true, actually? I'm going to question. I'm not just going to believe I'm not good enough for this job. I'm going to question if it's really true. And then that resistance burns away because you're welcoming it. Again, not liking it necessarily, but accepting it. And then the guidance sort of shines forth. This is the right job for me, or this isn't the right job for me. I shouldn't really put any more energy in this area. So you can literally feel your way through decisions like that. And that's kind of the awakened way, rather than trying to sort of figure out through a thought process. That might happen too, but you're much more led by your heart with a certainty. Like there's three options in front of you, and one of them will just seem very interesting, very exciting, uplifting. The other one, not so much. The other one feels a bit ooh. So, but this one that looks a bit ew might be the logically best choice, but you can't follow it then because you know your heart's saying go over here, and it never leads you wrong that way. So I'm glad you asked that. I hope it's helpful, and have a go with it. And if you need more guidance, just write back in. Thanks, Karen.
Okay, this is from James. Good afternoon. I apologize if this is a bit off the mark. Seeing what I'm about to say doesn't align with this particular video. But my path aligns with everything you talk about that I'm seemingly trying to achieve. I'll say as much as I can, for I know many read the comment section, and what I have to share in the section, in what I have to share in your confidence is a bit intimate to me. But I had something of a vision, and they told me to reach out to you. Now I'm a bit unsure if I was supposed to watch a certain video or speak with you directly. All I know is I've been to what you may call the other side of the shore, awakened or enlightened, whatever name we wish to put it. But I've come back to this limited identity that I'm using to deal with the world in. And of course, all I want to be is where I was in those moments. I'm having resistance to this current me and the real me. Like I'm oscillating between the two, and it's causing me some confusion and suffering. I don't want to ramble on here on your comments, but if you don't mind kindly helping me, I would be greatly appreciated. I completely know and wholeheartedly understand that I am the only one who can liberate myself and unite myself with myself. However, I have a belief if we were all the same, then helping others is helping ourselves, in which is always happening, but we get in the way of ourselves. My apologies. I'll stop there. Thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you for sending that in. And let me start by saying I experienced the very same thing. And pretty much everyone I've ever met also has that oscillating between the two shores, as you said. And I really the first thing I want to say about this is that this isn't happening because you've done something wrong, spiritually speaking. This also isn't happening because you've lost the other shore. So we take a boat trip to the other shore. We experience this placeless place where we're free completely. And of course, then a desire arises not to just go on vacation there. We want to live there. We want to build our house there and move everything over, so to speak. And that's normal. That's natural. Once you get a taste of that, of course you want it. Of course you want it all the time. So it was the same for me. But what I really didn't understand at the time was the process, how we come to live as that consistently, continuously, and effortlessly. It means that we have to be willing to look at all the beliefs that are in the way of that. So, of living as that. So we are that. We are that infinite self. We are formless. We're everywhere. We are the essence of everything. But to allow that to continuously shine through the mind and body, then we're actually we're not going to have to go through this process of clearing out everything that's in the way. So the light that you are is being filtered currently through certain beliefs that are still hanging on from this old idea, the other shore, who we used to think we were. So we can have seen quite clearly that I'm not a separate being, I'm not a person, I'm not this body. or I am all bodies, whichever way you want to look at it. But the seeing of that is very rare, that the seeing of that is enough to totally wipe out all of our previous thought structure. Most of us have to go through this process. It does happen very, very rarely. I don't know, 1 in 1,000 awakened beings perhaps get this apocalyptic seeing where it clears away every other belief. It wasn't like that for me or anyone else I've ever met. There's always this process afterwards of being shown everything that we need to look at. But looking at that from the other shore, is this true for me now? So the very first belief that comes up for most of us is, oh, this is a nice place to hang out. How do I stay here? Or I've lost it now. I seem to be back into the illusion. When we're thrown back into the old idea of who we thought we were, we can really resist that. Of course, we want to be over here, but the way to get back over here is not by resisting what's coming up. Life, love, awakening, the self, whatever you want to call that, is asking you now. If you want to live like this, we have to examine what's in the way of that. So for me, that was a deeper seeing needed of what it actually meant to be the infinite reality, to be the self, to be the formless awareness. Can I still be unsafe? When fear came up, it was showing me, can I still be unworthy, feel unworthy as this that I've seen myself to be now? Can I still be limited or blocked from anything that I want to achieve? And this may sound like, well, of course not, but actually asking in those moments and asking from the perspective of who you've seen yourself to be. So can you lose what this experience of who you really are if you are it? If I could give it to you and say, hey, this is the awakened state, have a go with this, then I could also take it away. You could gain it and lose it. But if you're just actually clearly seeing, hey, I've always been stood on this shore, always. I've had my eyes closed and I was convinced I was over the other side. Convinced, so convinced, it never even occurred to me to open my eyes and say, what if there isn't anywhere for me to go? What if I'm already hanging out on this shore? So these are the beliefs that you're going to have to look at, and they come up for everyone. Absolutely everyone. Just a willingness to look at them as they come up, because they won't feel good. They'll cause a lowering in the energy of the body and mind. They'll feel a bit icky, a bit sticky, or sometimes quite awful. But if you can recognize why they're coming up, then you won't resist them. They're coming up so that each one you clear out, you can actually consciously and effortlessly live on this other shore. And that's all an awakened being has done. They've seen and seen and seen and seen and seen again and again and again who they really are. And then the next problem mind brings up, they go, that is this true for me now, having seen who I really am? Do I need to even keep this or get back to this awakened state or condition, whatever you want to call it? Can I lose it in the first place? Did I ever gain it? Am I the one that really forgot and is remembering even? Because when you touch into that which is real, it's always been that way. We just, our attention goes back to thoughts and we seem to experience something else, this old state of being. So the most important thing for you right now, I would say, is to make sure that you're holding it in the right. This is happening because I'm succeeding. This is happening in response directly to my desire to stay here and live here. That if I want the sun to shine through this window continuously, all I need to do is clean the window with the beliefs. Just clean that off and then it shines. I don't even have to make it shine. The light's there. I just need to remove what's obscuring it. And that's all we're doing. And from every being I've ever come across that woke up, there's been this intermediary period, the seeing and then the clearing out of all the things that are in the way of that happening effortlessly and continuously. And then at the end of that process, there's just continuous joy, peace, bliss. But even while you're clearing those out, there's no suffering because you're living from already You're not, when your mind gives you this problem, you're not going, how do I fix this? You're looking at this problem the mind gives you next and says, you say, does this actually apply to me? Do I have to fix this? Is it relevant to me as the infinite self? So when mind gives you something, oh, see, you've lost it now. How do you get back to the other shore? Is that something you're going to follow? If in fact you're still standing on that shore and just somehow lost in thoughts that you aren't anymore. Mind says you got back in the boat and went back to the old. If that never actually occurred, what are you going to do when mind suggests it? Can you let it pass? Can you just let it go? Do nothing about it? Any attempt to get back to the shore of freedom, let's call it, only emphasizes that you think you're not there now and really reflects the suffering. So these are the kind of the way to navigate through these. We all have this thought constructed self that we have built around ourselves, and now it's a dismantling process. Most of us get some kind of freebie, try before you buy, to show you what it's like to live without thoughts. And that fuels the desire, then makes the desire strong enough so that you're willing to do this particular part of the process or to go through it. But you need not suffer while you're going. In fact, if you're suffering through this process, then you're still living on the other shore in your imagination, at least. Recognizing I'm standing in my own freedom, and now I'm going to navigate these beliefs that come up from there, from the place that's already free. And what you're going through, every one of us has to go through, and you're right on track, although it feels like I'm right off track. Thanks, Karen.
This next comment is from Louisa. I would like to share something that helped a lot regarding identification with the body. It seems also to have satisfied the mind, which made it a lot easier. I contemplated waking up one morning blind or deaf, or with an amputated limb, or even completely paralyzed. Obviously, I wouldn't choose that. Any of those would necessitate a great deal of adjustment. Ways of experiencing doing would be different, and it probably would seem that something has been lost, that I've been diminished in some way. But when I considered awareness, obviously, I would not have been affected at all. Would I cease to be if I were blind? Of course not. Would I be less worthy without an arm than with one, preposterous? Would the innate sense of being remain, even if the body could not move at all? It would. Regardless which sense or ability came or went, it would be only a condition that changed, not myself. Regardless how challenging that condition might be, relatively speaking, I would remain as always. Conditions and circumstances are always changing, yet awareness, consciousness, self is not affected. An effective variation on this inquiry is to imagine waking up as someone or something else, a small boy, an old woman, a dog, beetle, tree, and to contemplate whether anything would be altered or cease to be. I found that all would be as it is, regardless my physical form.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. I remember doing something similar along my path myself, and even to the point of eventually this body goes. Will I be any different when this body goes? Because I always kind of wanted to go to the worst case scenario, so to speak, and get that done if I could. And I came, like you said, came to see the awareness is the awareness, whether it's expressing itself through a body or not, doesn't really make any difference to the actual awareness. It does to make a difference to those left behind, so to speak. They might perceive a difference because I will no longer be visible. I'll only be invisible to the senses, at least, but I'll still be right here. So I'm glad that really, really helped. I remember also looking at what was also helpful, imagining myself when I was very, very young, remembering myself and imagining myself, my last breath in this body before I leave this body. And still there's the same sense, even right now, the same sense of awareness that is untouched and unchanged by anything If the body's young and healthy and fit, or if the body's elderly and frail and failing, it still remains completely the sense of self, the sense of worthiness, the sense of respect is based on the awareness. And then no matter what happens to the body and mind, of course, we do what we can to look after them. We value them, we love them, but our sense of self isn't tied to that then. It's a vehicle that we're using that we're very grateful for. But as you said, if I get a flat tire in my car, I don't suddenly feel that I'm diminished. My car needs a new tire, not me. So not the best analogy, but yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm really glad it was helpful, and I'm sure it'll help other people too. Thanks, Karen.
This is from Scorc, Scorc. Hi, Helen. Can you explain a spiritual awakening experience in the context of also having bipolar disease or disorder? Does waking up improve the symptoms of mental illness? Is mental illness a spiritual or physical illness? Thank you.
So I don't really know that much about bipolar. So I have a friend who haven't seen in a while who does struggle with it. But so I'll have to speak in kind of general terms. I can't really talk about that directly, not having very much experience of it. And I haven't seen anyone who struggles with bipolar who's actually woken up. So at least that I'm aware of. So is it a physical or a spiritual illness? And that really intrigued me when Karen read that out, because what we tend to assume as a human being is that it's going to be one or the other, and always it's both. There's some uh, energetic component that's being reflected as a physical uh, component in any illness. So our mental health is no different than our physical health in that way, or even our emotional health. So if there is something energetic, it's going to reflect in our mental health too. We see that if I have an unfulfilled desire in my soul, my energy body, whatever you want to call that, to feel safe, it's going to affect my mental health with a lot of worrying, isn't it, about being unsafe. And then there'll be an emotional aspect to that, of feeling fear, perhaps, and worry, nerves, and everything from real terror up to nervousness is really just a form of fear. And then a physical way that shows up. For some, that is actually something in the body itself. So whichever desire we have to feel loved, to feel safe, to feel approved of, to feel recognized, there's going to be a energetic, mental, emotional, and physical component to that always. And my very limited experience of working with people with mental health challenges is that, including my own self, in that I had a very severe depression earlier in life. Actually, the start of my awakening, although I didn't recognize that at the time, was this deep, dark, very black hole of despair, and verging on alcoholism as well at the time. So my experience with working with people through the teaching and the seeing of who we really are is that it does help. It does help to resolve a lot of those issues. And one of the things that's been fundamental in my own working with in fact, my own children and those around me, has been a shift from in my own life too, with my own mental health, where there is a physical component, i.e., something different in our brain structure that comes with a certain condition or label that other people don't have. It's been awakening has brought a capacity to see the flip side of that. So for everything where we might say this is a negative thing, there's also a positive component to it also. Um, And people who have irregular brain structures to everyone else have some unique gifts and capacities that most of us don't. And awakening tends to perhaps give that gift that when we're not so identified as that, we don't feel that that necessarily is something wrong with us. It's something different about us, which is not anything to be upset at, it's something to celebrate. And perhaps we might even be kinder to ourselves and give more care and love to ourselves than we would without that label or that condition. Um, so that's about all I can say in that area because I don't have very much experience of it. A little experience working with people with ADHD and people on the autistic spectrum, but not so much a bipolar. So I can't be any more help than that. But hopefully that's given you some kind of way forward. And please do write back in if you need, if that stimulates another question from what's been said. Thanks, Karen.
The next question is from Spiritual Seeker. Dear Helen, thank you for your teachings and for the opportunity to ask you a question. My question is as follows. Having had deeper seeings, turning into the silence has become easier for me, and I'm happy to say it changed my former reactive and judgmental behavior a lot. However, there's one side effect which causes me concern, and it's the emergence of fear. Not the fear that one being spoke about in Satsang, which was her fear of losing herself entirely upon awakening. No, the fear and anxiety I'm experiencing is rather like a fear of living. I experience fear to do things. I feel safest at home, and I don't even enjoy the idea of going out on holiday. All this is very odd because I used to love to travel and undertake all kinds of things. I hardly recognize myself. I'm feeling extremely vulnerable as well as exhausted. Fear is wearing me out. As a child, I was extremely fearful, but growing up, I had overcome all of that. For your information, I'm a woman of 60 years old. Thank you for any light you can shed on my predicament. Much love.
Well, let me start by saying, well done for writing in and sharing that. I'm sure it's not easy. And I experienced something similar myself. I actually realized during my awakening that this process that I was talking about, I think in response to James, maybe this middle section where a lot of fears. I've seen what I am to some degree at least, or seeing in my meditation, in my inquiry, and then this middle section of having these beliefs come up to be examined but because they no longer fit inside me. So this fear was here for you as a young child. As an adult, we tend to rationalize and find ways to avoid that fear. But now that you're seeing who you really are, because you're awakening and succeeding, not because you're failing, really important, because your identity is shifting over, you're starting to realize clearer and clearer, this is who I really am. I've never been that separate being that was born and is going to die. Because you're succeeding in your awakening, and I'm saying that again because it's really important, really important. Unless you really get that, it's going to be hard to shift this pattern. This isn't coming up because you've done something wrong. It isn't a side effect either. It's a sign of success. It feels awful. I get that. And it runs your entire life currently. But it will start to shift the moment you realize this is life showing you everything that needs to be cleared out so you can live in peace, joy, love, contentment, effortlessly and consistently. So, of course, we all want that. So, whether it's fear of death or fear of living, or fear of driving on icy roads, or fear of spiders, or whatever we think we're scared of, it is nonetheless just fear at the root. How it shows up for each one of us is different. But the core belief underneath that fear is like if you really ask that fear what it wanted to tell you, and this is the contemplation technique that we're using a lot here in these teachings. And if you look on one of the playlists here on the channel when this is uploaded, There's Core Teachings playlist. There's a video in that called Contemplation, the Art of Asking a Question. So asking the fear what it wants to tell you, I recommend you watch that, and then ask the fear what it wants to say. When I asked fear, it said, I'm not safe, or I'm in danger. And that was true whether I thought I was scared of dying, I wasn't safe then, or scared of living, going out in the world. I used to hibernate at home. And I realized I was scared of other beings. I had to really question this. If I'm safer when I'm at home on my own, I'm actually scared of all the other beings I think are out there. But if I come to realize there aren't any other beings, actually, that it's all me, and the whole universe becomes my playground. So first of all, recognizing this is coming up because you're succeeding and you're going deeper and moving into effortlessly being this presence. It won't feel like that, but nonetheless, that's what's happening. Number two, asking the fear what it wants to tell you. Just if a fear was standing in front of you like another person, if you could have a conversation with it, what would it say? And then three, questioning it if that's really true. So as my seeing went deeper, I began to see there aren't any other beings. And it's not really true that I'm not safe. In fact, I'm safest I've ever been. In fact, I've never really been unsafe because there's only me. I thought there were this infinite number of other beings and things. When I come to see there's only me, you can't really get any safer than that. The other people have been reflecting back to me my belief that I'm separate to them, just as I was doing to them. And we all walk around in this hall of mirrors, which is a kind of a hall of nightmares. So that would be how I suggest moving forward with this. Nothing is going wrong. This is the process of awakening here. And I keep saying this because it needs to be. This is what took me the longest to get. So now fear is saying, okay, please contemplate on me. And you might have to do the same with unworthiness. For me, that came up to anger. Those were the three sort of big core beliefs that were still hanging on from the idea of who I thought I was, even after a deeper seeing. It was still showing up in my life. And because you're seeing clearer who you really are, the energy wants to flow faster. The energy of truth wants to flow faster through the body mind. And these beliefs are really so impeding the flow, a slower and lower frequency. So life is just asking us to question, is that true for you, given who you've seen yourself to be? Are there any other beings to actually fear? Of course, we've had that experience. Of course, we've had that experience. But that experience, all our 60 years for you, whatever it is, experience of being hurt by other beings and feeling unsafe, was a reflection of this idea that I'm not safe. It had to be that way while I believed I wasn't safe. And we couldn't believe any other way while we thought we were separate beings. So no blame. Just shifting this now. This is my awakening trying to deepen. And this being free of fear forever is worth doing this work. Trust me, it's worth doing this work. Because once you've done this, looked at fear, what it's trying to tell you, it's gone forever. Can you imagine living free of fear forever? Peace always. So I hope that's encouraging, and just want to send my love and say I'm right there with you. Thanks, Karen.
This question is from Kim. When the body is dying, has the soul body left before the body has died?
Well, actually, it's kind of the same thing. The body dying and the soul leaving are happening at the same time. And if you could actually see the energy of the soul or the aura, whatever you want to call that, you'd see it's a gradual withdrawal. For some people, it's happening over years. It's a very, very slow and gradual withdrawal. For some people, it's much faster. But they're actually the same. It's the soul being in the body that's animating the body. So as it leaves, that's where all we see from the physical perspective is the body slowing down, the breathing, the heart rate, and then eventually stopping. But they're actually the same thing seen from two different angles. So hope that answers your question there. Thank you.
This question is from Nikjima. I'm sure I mispronounced that.
Don't worry.
Hi, Helen. Hi, Helen. I found you because I have been looking for a long time for realized people that have kids, which, to be honest, feels impossible. My question, sometimes it feels life is living itself and I am merely observing. Sadly, this feeling is fleeting, especially if I feel the need to be with the kids. How can I stay with this, especially when surroundings are wild? And is the only free will we have the direction of our attention? Thank you for all you do.
So thank you. And yeah, let me start with that last bit. Yeah, our only free will as the infinite self is where our attention is. In fact, that's all it's ever been. We haven't really had a choice in the way that we think, directly at least, of our actions, our words, our thoughts. Our thoughts, words, and actions are arising out of our vibration, our energy level that we're holding in the mind and body. And we'll have thoughts, words, and actions that are of the similar frequency to whatever frequency we're holding on to. So our only free will then is, where is my attention? Is it on my real self or on my imagined self in this particular moment? And as you so rightly pointed out, there are places where attention seems like it's got a mind of its own and gets dragged back to the imagined self, the separate person that thinks they're doing, which really never existed. But boy, does it sure seem to exist when the kids are fighting. And a mother of four myself, I totally get where this is coming from, this question. And for me, it started with, and as I said before, and some of these questions I've answered already on the session today, not blaming yourself, recognizing that this is coming up to show you only where there is still some identification with the body, with the sense of being someone. So although it feels terrible because it feels like I've lost, I'm just here and life is living itself. I love the way you said that. Life is just living itself, and that's so true. These words are just arising out of my mouth with no planning at all, straight out of the emptiness of being. And then something happens and we feel suddenly drawn back into a much more tighter, constricted, limited version of ourselves. For me, my children have been my biggest teachers and continue to be. The total Zen teachers. And first thing to say about that is nothing is going wrong there. No blame of yourself, that you can't quite yet stand in what's real here in this area. We all have that one area, or 3 or 4 areas, where we feel drawn back to the illusion involuntarily. So here's where I feel. So first of all, being kind to yourself. Then secondly, noticing I have a tendency to still think of myself as a someone doing something. I've got to step in here and parent or be that I'm actively involved. I'm changing. I'm doing something as a separate being. So just getting clear on what's actually happening there, that the body is doing something and not you. And the quality of the actions, let's say you've just come out of a nice satsang or a meditation and you're feeling very peaceful and your actions are all very loving and harmonious. And then you come into the room, you hear the kids fighting about something, or they haven't done their homework or whatever it is that's going on. One of them got detention, life stuff. And the quality of our actions and words seems to drop. They might become angry, or we might start to blame ourselves for this situation out there, or we might, fall into a lower vibrational state in the body and mind at least. And of course, we don't want to be angry. We'd rather value love and truth. That's who we are at this point. You wouldn't be in the awakening process if you didn't. But there's where the doer kicks in. How do I get back to loving, harmonious thoughts, words, and actions? How do I get back to that awakened, peaceful, open, life living itself place? And most of us then shift into gear of being the doer. We come out of neutral and go into first gear or drive, and we're suddenly a doer again. So just in that moment where you notice you've kind of You know, like for me, it was like turned into this green rageful monster, like Incredible Hulk moment or something. You know, from uh, Zen Buddhist into the Incredible Hulk in 15 seconds or less. And I'm laughing about it now, but it was really awful at the time. Really awful, I remember. Um, just noticing a desire arises in that moment to come back to your equanimity and to be able to interact with children from that place too. If you can just let that desire arise but do nothing about it, because at the moment you try to get back, do something to get back to the awakened state, you're really emphasizing that you are someone that has to get back and that there's something you can do even to get back. So, best advice would be not to try to first implement this in the moment. Just think about it with a cup of tea while they're at school or whatever's going on, and in a quieter moment. I can see that when that desire arises, of course I want the peace again, of course. But the fastest way back to that is just to let the infinite self isn't doing anything. So the desire arises and it passes and manifests immediately when you don't do anything about it. Of course, if the kids are fighting, you might have to physically go and separate them. You know, what your body does is different. But you, spiritually speaking, don't get out your toolkit of what to do when this happens. Don't look for your favorite practice. In fact, all the practices that we're learning here in this teaching and all authentic non-dual teachings are ways to get out of the way of letting the desire manifest, to just be. So whether we do that from meditation, contemplation, is it really true I am the doer? That was a really helpful thing for me. Is it really true I'm the parent of these children? Because it really felt sticky in that moment. Actually, no, I am my children. They are me too. It's just the roles that these bodies are playing. And left alone, the body can do it quite well, actually, when we're not in the way of that process. So just think about it, ponder it, maybe find a question that you can use in an emergency, a spiritual emergency, and perhaps give yourself a pat on the back as well, because you're really trying to apply this in perhaps one of the most challenging areas for you. That takes courage, that takes willingness, that takes a deeply committed person to awakening or non-person. And here you are trying to apply this now to the most challenging area. That's huge, isn't it? You might have done all the other easier areas, and now you're on this biggie, this real biggie. And every parent I've spoken to says the same thing, that this is the biggie for most parents. You know, because we love our children, want to make sure they're healthy, happy, and all of that. And all we've known how to do before is to approach them with this idea of being the doer. But maybe your kids are your best teachers too, and they're helping you shift over to non-doing here. And that's a natural evolutionary process that'll go on in all of your relationships. It might be most visible with your children. So hope that helps. And thank you for being able to share.
This next comment is from Marianne. Love what you said, that it's in here and out here. Many thanks for all you share.
Thank you.
Here's a question. Comment from Susan. I will keep zooming out and feeling peace in the moment. Thank you.
Wonderful. I think last time we were talking about zooming in and out, weren't we? And last volume 16, I think. So I'm glad you like that. Wonderful. Thank you.
The next question is from Ideology. So many people grow up with unconscious parenting, hurting us and violating our boundaries again and again, programming negative self-beliefs, unsafety, maladaptive ways of coping and relating to others. So often reality mirrors this back to us with people, opinions, and events experienced out there. It's so frustrating being self-aware of this, only for it to keep happening. Things are improving in my experience, but I just want the negative self-beliefs and dense emotions gone already.
Okay, so none of us can help how we were raised, of course, and it helps to remember, and I'm sure you have, but I'm just going to say it anyway, that your own parents were working from the only model they had too. As you know, when largely as a separate being, raising my 3 older children, or thought I was at the time, and more so with my youngest, raising her as this, whatever this is that parents now. And to have passed along some of those limiting ways myself, and feeling, the urge to undo those, it can be an endless reflection coming back to you. And whether we're talking about parenting or anything at all in life, the way to you said you want rid of these beliefs, limiting beliefs and factors, and I totally understand that. And I'm going to say 2 different things which are both the same, but they're going to be the fastest way out of suffering. And the first is that if you're still trying to resist or get rid of those limited karmic patterns, then you're still actually standing there as a separate being. Very, very subtle, this. Because the infinite awareness that we really are doesn't actually have any karmic patterns, nor could it. And that's not a bypassing, that's just actual truth. So standing as the separate being, I need to be free of these because I'm the one suffering from them. That's the core assumption in that. And if we can come to really truly know that we're not affected by these, they might be still playing, but we're not affected by them, that's when they finally dissolve. So a recognition, the first thing of recognizing, wow, there's still some subtle separateness here. This is still part of my old identity. It's still in the dream. And most of us, I haven't met a single being who's not bought this illusion too. I did for many years. That when I'm free of my karmic patterns, that's when I'll be free. So the other side of that then is to to stand in that which is already free no matter what. And is observing this untangling of this thought structure that we took ourselves to be, this dissolving, this undoing that's happening in the thought constructed self that we thought we were. So a little deeper into yourself, there's a place where you're not bothered even by these presence or absence of the karmic patterns, and hanging out in that place where you, as often as possible, where you just don't even need them to go because you're so peaceful already. Can you see the idea that when these are gone, I'll be peaceful? But it's actually the idea, or I'll be free or awakened or loving or blissed out or whatever, substitute whatever it is that you're looking for. When my karmic patterns have gone, then I'll feel this way, says mind. That's an endless, endless cycle. When you admit that it's possible to feel how you want to feel now, even with these patterns still playing, then you feel your very assertion that how you want to feel is not already possible now is what's disturbing you, not the karmic patterns anyway. Took me a good while to get this, so I'm going to say it one more time, only because I know I'm kind of talking through a little bit of illusion. What's been heard might be filtered by some kind of illusion energy. It's not the karmic patterns that you want to get rid of. If you still had these karmic patterns and you were totally pieced out, blissed out, loved up, would you care if they were there or not? Not so much. So it's only the idea, what you're actually suffering from is the idea that they need to go before you can feel how you want to feel. And that's the most direct thing I can say right now. Is it true you can't feel that way right now? If you are the one who's already free and never had anything to release or attain, you can feel exactly how you want to. And when I first heard that, I'm like, yeah, right, they obviously haven't seen my karmic patterns, whoever wrote that in the scripture, like I've got the biggest ones ever. Don't they know I've got 4 kids, and I'm like terrible parent. But I had to really stand here. It must be possible for me to feel how I want to feel now, even if that's only peace right now, if that's all I can, contentment and peace, and we'll stand in that. I will not put any condition on my peace that anything else has to change before I can feel peaceful. And when I stood there and stood there and stood there, these patterns, these karmic patterns dissolved finally because I finally wasn't trying to get rid of them, actually. It may be difficult to imagine living in a place where you don't even need those to go. And yet it is who you already are. So why do you want them to go? How do you think you'll feel then that you don't think you can feel now? That's the undoing of it very quickly, very quickly. And from there, they fall away anyway because you're finally not resisting them. And you're watching them dissolve as the infinite self that's just watching them dissolve. You're not the one that's having to get out your saw and hack through the jungle of all these patterns that are coming, you know. That's hard work and endless, and it doesn't work. The moment you clear a space, some more's put in front of you. So, real shortcut. What do I think I'll feel that I'm not thinking is possible to feel right now? And why do I think I can't feel it right now? Well, I'm actually really assuming in that it's not possible, it's not here right now already. Just because my mind isn't feeling peace right now, my body rather, doesn't mean it's not available. Maybe I'm experiencing the idea that it's not present or not possible. Maybe I'm that powerful that the moment I believe I have to change something to find peace, I'll be disturbed. So, hope that helps. Have a play around with it and see what comes up from that. Thanks, Karen.
This next thank you is from Time. She says, I will be pondering while gardening today. What a joy, these questions and answers. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you.
The next question is from I Love Henry. Why is it that if everything is the same stuff, i.e., all is one, that when we're out in nature, it's easier to feel that potentiality of the all? And when inside or not in nature, that sense of aliveness, that all is so dull.
So that's happening because we tend to have more ideas about people, things than we do. If we're out in nature, we're in the fresh air, we're surrounded by plants, trees, animals. We tend to have well, it's very rare that we have an argument with a blade of grass or a tree, you know. Although I have seen some people get upset, but in general, being around nature is the place where we tend to have very few thoughts anyway. We get around another human being, we have lots of projections about them, things that we think we want from them or need from them, ways that we feel we need them to be different than they are, most especially ways we feel we need to be different than we are. But when we're around nature, for most of us, that thought activity is quieter anyway. So the aliveness, the complete, total aliveness of everything, even what we would call insentient, even a rock, even a tea bag, even a planet, it's all got this pristine aliveness to it that seems to be covered over. You can tell how many thoughts you're thinking subconsciously about something or what your energy is around something by how much that aliveness is diminished. So, you know, we all sit together in meditation, we get really clear, we have a clear seeing, everything's alive and vibrant and colorful. And then we go see our boss the next day at work, and we're really not having that experience, are we? Totally different, because we have a lot of ideas about that person. We might need that person to approve of us, or we might not feel safe around them, or it might stimulate our unworthiness or something like that. So we're only ever being affected by the thoughts that we're thinking, not the other actual things. So not affected by our boss, but what we think about our boss. And in nature, it's easy to let go of those. A beautiful sunset, the pristine snow before anyone steps on it when it's first fallen. It's easy to kind of go, oh, you know, I'm going to do snow angel, jump in there and have at it. So where you feel that aliveness is really diminished, that'll show you where you've got a lot of thoughts going on underneath. And the shortcut out of that is, you know, what's actually here in this moment, or who is my boss? Well, that's a biggie. Like, what do I know about this person if I don't think about them? or don't go to history or previous experiences, which were also reflections of my projections. So have fun with that, have a play with it. Maybe don't apply it to your boss if it's the most challenging person. Maybe apply it to someone that you do get along with first, and then work up to that. Thanks, Karen.
So the last comment is from Life, Death, and Stuff. OMG, the part about the doer, amazing. How do I stop identifying with the doer? When I realized what was actually being said there, I started laughing. The apparent doer is the one asking the question. So sneaky. I guess the hint is in the word do or anything that would suggest an action is required. Even the idea that I have to do nothing triggers a subtle sense of doership, as it sends me on the impossible mission to do nothing. Thank you, Helen. That was literally enlightening for me.
I'm laughing, and because I remember desperately trying to do nothing for quite some time. Like I remember Ajay Shanti saying, first we're driving forwards. We put it into drive, we're driving forwards, our first gear here in the UK. And then we like spiritually put it in reverse and try to drive backwards, thinking we're not doing anything. We're going everywhere in reverse, that was actually a really, really painful stage. So totally get that. For me, the key was to see that to really look at what's happening when an action happens or words are spoken. That is the spontaneous arising of the infinite self as form. That there isn't any entity there doing it. In our self-inquiry, we can see again and again, we can't find this person that we think is the orchestrator and the planner and the thinker and the doer. It's just not there every time we look. Seems to be, feels like it is, but not actually locatable. So coming to see that, and then okay, so what's actually happening? What's making these words come out right now? And the short answer is I don't know. What made you write in about this? I don't know. It's just kind of the nature of the infinite self to move into form. So you can just watch those actions happening and go, well, they're just arising. Nobody's orchestrating them. And then sort of marveling at the wonder of that. Like this whole universe is just kind of happening spontaneously with no separate being in charge or the universal being in charge of that. But even that, it's not doing it, let's create a universe. It's just for the joy of expression of all the different shapes it can experience itself in. So just noticing actions or words, thoughts are rising because it's like steam rising off of boiling water. It's just its nature. It's not doing it deliberately. It's just what's happening. And there isn't this legendary separate being that we all thought we were that's in charge of that process. What a relief. Because if there was, we could get it wrong, and we often thought we did. And then we can get it right and feel all inflated, done that one too. That got old, so eventually dropped that one too. So just being curious is the fastest way out of the doership. What's actually happening here then? What's causing my words and actions and thoughts to, what's causing anything to manifest? And you come back to this mystery that there isn't really any particular reason I can put my finger on. It's just what the self does, kind of. Just being curious and looking at it again with a light curiosity. Why do I keep going back to imagining the doer? Not from a blame place. Like, what is it that happens there? Could it just be a real established habit? And just playing with that. Any habit can be changed with enough consistency. It's just a habit. And we've changed many habits already. This is just one that we've been really, really sure was a good habit until fairly recently. Now, not so useful. So thank you for that. Hope that helps. And thank you, Karen, very much for reading. Appreciate it. So that brings us to the end of this Ask Me Anything. This will be uploaded, of course. And if you have, as I was saying at the beginning, any questions or comments you want me to address at the beginning of July, just feel free to leave them as a comment under this YouTube video, and we'll do that in July. Thank you very much. Namaste.